Hey guys, I'm in downtown San Antonio waiting to meet one of my customers later in a few hours. But while I'm waiting, I wanted to talk about briefly my recent experience flying to Singapore, talk about exactly my point of view, what I liked about it, what my take would be traveling to Singapore. Everything from Qatar Airways, which I believe is pronounced Qatar Airways, all the way down to being in Singapore, experiencing the lifestyle of Singapore, and a little bit of everything in a nutshell. If you've missed any of my videos, definitely check them out because they would have a little bit better explanation and understanding of what I've experienced for the last 2 weeks that I was there. The first thing I want to talk about is Qatar Airways or Qatar Airways. When I got to DFW Airport, I was pleasantly surprised when it was time to board. I was in zone 4, which is premium economy. I wanted to fly business class, but I just didn't have enough money for it. Everyone that I've talked to, they've said, yes, definitely fly Qatar Airways. And they've also said you might as well fly business class because if you're going to be traveling 25 hours with a layover of 14 hours in Doha, Qatar, it's well worth waiting and saving enough money to fly business class. Since I flew premium economy, service was just as good. But if you ever fly Qatar Airways, and if you haven't done it yet, if you fly first class or business class, as you know, with every other airline, they let you board first. However, with Qatar Airways, what they do is they have 2 separate entrances, like actually on the plane, for business class and first class. And then for anybody that's in economy, it's a separate section of the plane. Once I got on the flight, we were late taking off because at DFW Airport, they were a little bit congested. We were supposed to leave by about 6:30 or 6:45, but we didn't leave till 7:45. First thing is when you get on the flight, they provide you with a little bag. They provide you with socks, with a sleeping mask, and headphones. I didn't really use any of that stuff except for sleeping mask because on the way to Singapore, I was too excited to sleep. So I might have slept maybe an hour total. Once you take off, they start providing you meals. I chose to pre-select my meals randomly because they provided you with 6 meals total on your round-trip flight. Everything was good. Customer service was amazing. The one thing I would say is on my flight, I had an older gentleman when we were first taking off from DFW, flying to Doha, Qatar. He was a little bit upset because he booked this flight through American Airlines, and unfortunately, anybody that flies American, you can't expect the best out of them. They're always going to let you down. Unfortunately, they're not even in the top 10, one of the best airlines in the country. They jumped even further. If you looked at consumer ratings, you'll find out that Spirit Airlines actually bypassed them. But anyway, with American, because he booked business class, they actually screwed him over. I'm going to call it like it is. You could defend American Airlines all you want, but I'm going to call it like it is. I deal with them indirectly every day, but I got to experience at the other side that when they partner with other airlines, they unfortunately screwed him over. He had to fly premium economy. It sounds bad, or you might be thinking, well, premium economy should be good enough for you. Qatar Airways, average ticket one way, if you're doing business class, is anywhere between $3,500 to $4,000. Let's just say he paid $8,000 round trip and he's flying premium economy. They should be refunding him, but non-American Airlines, they're going to find a way to make an excuse and not refund him. Unfortunately, that was my only negative experience with Qatar Airways, but other than that, customer service was really good. On my way back with Qatar Airways from Singapore back to DFW Airport with a layover of about 6 to 8 hours in Doha, Qatar again. The one cool thing that I will say about Qatar Airways, they have to deal with a lot of people on their international flight, but the one really cool thing that spoke to me, the customer service, is when we had about 5 hours left on our flight, my flight attendant, she came up to me because I was taking a nap, kind of sad and depressed that I'm leaving Singapore. You know, it's kind of like flying first class. Once you go to Singapore, no other country is going to compare to that. It really was an amazing experience that I had, and I do plan on going back there. But She nudged me a few times. She woke me up. The following words she said really spoke to me. She said, "Would you like to join us for dinner?" She could have said anything. She could have said, "Join us for dinner." She could have said, "Here's your dinner. Dinner is served." But no, she chose to say, "Would you like to join us for dinner?" She made me feel inclusive. She made me feel welcome. She made me feel part of the Qatar family by inviting me to join them for dinner. The last time I flew internationally was in 2018. I flew to Moscow, Russia, and I have not had any flight attendant go that far to say, "Would you like to join us for dinner?" And that really meant a lot to me. For me personally, even though there was a few hiccups with Qatar Airways, mainly because of American Airlines, again, not trying to point fingers, just giving you the facts, because the poor old man then, it reflected poorly on him, and it reflected poorly on American because they did screw him over. He then was proceeding to be mean to the flight attendants through most of the flight. He acted like they owed him everything, and sadly, they didn't really owe him anything. It was mainly because he booked through American Airlines, and unfortunately, if you've had bad experience enough with American Airlines, you should know better. So technically, that's on him. He should have booked directly with Qatar Airways to know for a fact he was going to have a seat and not have to worry about if they're going to bump him. And unfortunately, like I said, because he booked through American Airlines, those are the consequences. Anybody that flies American Airlines long enough or had a bad experience enough to switch to another airline, you know better. You know not to fly with American Airlines. That was one of my things that I made sure that whoever I chose to fly with, I did my thorough research to make sure they cannot fly to Doha, Qatar, or Singapore. When I was in Doha, Qatar, there was only 1 or 2 planes total that was American Airlines. And in Singapore, I hardly saw any American Airlines planes. I wanted to experience the fullness of flying internationally, and unfortunately, American Airlines will not provide you that customer service like Qatar Airways provided or Singapore Airlines provided when I flew Singapore Airlines back in 2012. If you've seen my one of my first videos that's got currently over 650 views, I believe, on my YouTube channel, it explains the reason. I even titled the video, "Why did I choose Singapore? Why did I choose fly with them?" And in a nutshell, I had a really amazing experience with Singapore Airlines that I was like, you know what? I want to experience Singapore as a country. Same with Qatar Airways. I had such a good experience with Qatar Airways. I'm going to plan in the future to fly to Doha, Qatar, and experience the culture, experience the country. When you take off to go to Singapore, you actually end up flying really close to the downtown Doha, Qatar. I do plan on making a trip out there in the future to experience it for a couple of days, because I do believe if they treated me the way that they treated me, I'm sure the country is going to be just as good. Now, let's talk about me landing in Singapore and the whole experience. One thing I will say to starting out with Changi Airport, which I've been mispronouncing wrong. My apologies to any of my YouTube subscribers or anybody that's watching this video. It was my first time to Singapore, so next time I go, I'll be sure to pronounce it right. But I believe it's Changi Airport. I've only been to the Terminal 1 just recently, a couple of weeks ago. Today is November 30th, 2023. I was there October 5th through October 14th. A couple of weeks ago, they announced that they are opened, newly renovated Terminal 2 that's got digital waterfalls. This gives me another reason to go back to Singapore and experience it. There's a few other things like Line that I didn't get to see because it was under renovations. Well, this kind of stinks. So behind me, I believe, is the statue, the Merlion that shoots fountain out of its mouth. Right now, it looks like it's under renovation. I guess this gives me another excuse to come back to Singapore at another time. It's supposed to overlook Marina Bay Sands. And then there was this famous bridge, that hiking trail bridge, that I also didn't get a chance to go on because it was under renovations. All right, guys, I finally made it. That behind me is the bridge I'm trying to get to. Not quite sure how to get there, so I got to figure it out. That's supposed to be a really cool tourist attraction. Can't tell. It may be under construction, so I got to go find out. I wasn't disappointed, but this gives me another chance, an excuse to go back. In the future, if you see me doing another vlog about Singapore, now you know why. Let's talk about Changi Airport. When you land, you're going to be at Terminal 1 if you're coming on an international flight. The first thing you're going to do is obviously go to the baggage claim. They come out really, really fast. I was actually really surprised. And then I went over to start looking for a taxi or an Uber, which Singapore does not have Uber, which thank goodness, because taxis there, they are top-notch quality. They are required to have high standards. The vehicles have to be new. They can't be old. Most of them have to be clean. They have to have leather seats, and the drivers are super friendly. Taxis are definitely not anything like here in America, where you get in the taxi and you might smell onion smell, garlic smell, bad BO. In Singapore, that is not the case. I've taken taxis enough times in Singapore to now know that when I go back to Singapore, I'm going to be choosing taxis every time. The taxi app that I use, there are several of them that you could use. The one that I used that I got comfortable with, I was looking around what's the best taxi service I could use, what's the easiest to download, and I chose Tada, which is TADA. When you download the app, you could choose to use your MasterCard to attach to the app, or you could choose to pay cash. You can select cash every time. After I selected my taxi app and I kind of got familiar with it, I went to currency exchange booth, which I talk about that on my 50th vlog, Changing Airport. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go check it out. That gives you an in-depth knowledge of what I went through. But in a nutshell, when I was going to that booth, I got my money exchanged. I also asked them, hey, do you guys have a SIM card? Because my friend Caleb Preston, he suggested that if you're going to be going to Singapore for 2 weeks, get a SIM card because it's going to be very beneficial for you. I took his advice and I asked them if they had one. I paid $30 Singapore dollars, which is equivalent of about 25 US dollars, and I got 100 gigabytes of data on the number one network called Singatel. I might be mispronounced that, but it's Singatel, Sigtel, and I only used up 10 gigabytes. I had 90 gigabytes of leverage remaining, but unfortunately I wasn't gonna be able to use all that. I got the SIM card. I was really surprised. The guy helped me. He gave me a little bobby pin to insert into my phone, and then I was able to install it pretty quickly. The experience was great at the airport. Now let's talk about my hotels. I stayed at the 4-star hotel called V Hotel off of Bencoolen Street. For 4-star, they did a really good job. And I talk about hotels in Singapore versus American hotels, both here in America and in Singapore. Here's how I was looking for my hotels. I had a budget set, and I also wanted to see what would it be like to stay in an American hotel in Singapore, and what would it be like price-wise to stay in a hotel that's, their local hotel there in Singapore. After I looked at all the prices, I chose to stay at that's my hotel that I've stayed for the last 10 nights. They also have a money changing station, and that's the breakfast place. Let's say, for instance, you wanted to go to Holiday Inn, right? So Holiday Inn in Singapore, you're going to be paying about, for the 10 days or 10 nights that I was there, you're going to be paying about close to $3,000. Basically $300 a night. In stars, equivalency of 4 stars, the same thing as Holiday Inn, I only paid $1,100. Same quality, nothing was bad. Customer service was amazing. In fact, in my vlog 49, day 9, part 1, I talk about how this particular hotel that I stayed at, they really impressed me. I asked them if they could bring up to my room just 1 bottle of water because I drink hot tea a lot and I was doing some work. I needed to get some more hot water to put in my tea kettle to boil it. They knocked on the door 5 minutes later. This is how amazing customer service is here. Here's what I want to show you. Look at this. I asked for a couple of bottled waters. They bring me 6 of them. Then one of the things that I did that I've had a dream for a while to go see was the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, Resort, and Casino. I had a really good experience. I went to explore around it. I went to the shops at the Marina Bay Sands. To go up to the 57th floor to have a dinner at C'est La Vie restaurant, and I got to meet world-renowned chef Maxim Chukhanov, who happens to be also Russian like me. I'm on the 57th floor here at the Marina Bay Sand Tower 3. the entrance for the Celebi restaurant, but I'm gonna go early, so they asked me to just hang out. I didn't expect to be in Singapore and meet another Russian, but when I researched for that restaurant weeks before I was going to be flying in there, I saw that he was the world-renowned chef there. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely have to reserve the seat there to make sure that I get to meet him. Then the rest of the 8 days or 9 days that I was there, I did some other things. I went into the World War II bunker. That was a pretty unique experience I had there. I'm just exploring Singapore for the next 8 days, and right now I'm in the World War II bunker. I walked everywhere. That was my number one goal, is to not take a car as much as possible, but to walk everywhere. So I accomplished that. And then on one of the days, I had a really cool experience going to this really unique restaurant. If you're somebody that likes to eat organic, one restaurant that I checked out was the Summer House. After I finished eating dinner there, I walked all the way back, 9 miles total, 3.5 hours later. I walked back to my hotel. I started my walk at about 8:30 at night, and I wore white flip-flops. The reason I did that is I wanted to experience, is it really safe to walk in Singapore during nighttime, and just how clean it is. So I figured no better way than to wear my white flip-flops and experience Singapore in its fullness. Along my walk, I got to see some green and orange lanterns. Which was, at the time in October, this was their popular thing that they were doing for a limited time. And on certain streets, I got to see some girls, both different ages, walking by themselves, and nobody was bothering them. All in all, I learned on that night that I walked, I learned that Singapore really is safe, and I learned that Singapore really is the cleanest country. And then one of the other things that I saw on my walk during that night was I saw a man sweeping the streets in the dark. Singapore, really impressive country in terms of how clean they are. Just behind me, behind that building over there of this apartment complex, I saw somebody, keep in mind it's like 10:30 at night already, someone that was sweeping the neighborhood. So it's impressive. I don't know if he was just that much devoted Singaporean, or if it's just part of his duty to sweep the grounds at nighttime. Either way, that really impressed me, because in America, I have not seen anywhere where at nighttime you could actually have somebody, an employee or dedicated citizen, actually make sure the streets are clean. That I have not seen at all. If you want to see the exact water fountain music show that I saw on my day 7, look up day 7 on my YouTube channel to find the right video. It's about 14 minutes, and it's got about, I believe, 336 views. That I stumbled by accident. I didn't really expect to see a water show. I just wanted to kind of walk around and experience what it looks like at nighttime. And when I walked outside, from right outside the shops at the Marina Bay Sands, they were doing the water show. Guys, I'm at the shops at the Marina Bay Sands. Look at this. And then I walked around at shops at the Marina Bay Sands just to kind of see and compare what kind of shops they have there. What are the prices? It can be pretty expensive, but like food-wise, part of that day 7, I do talk about where you'll see a plate that I got that was a pretty big plate, and I paid 8 Singapore dollars, which is equivalent of about $5.86 US dollars. Overall, day 7 was a really good experience. Like I said, if you missed any of my videos, definitely go back and check them out. There was one where I went to the National Singapore Museum, and I got to experience the culture. And if you want to know more about Singapore, I definitely recommend going to that museum. it's going to give you a lot of history about Singapore, and I learned a lot because I spent a couple of hours there. There's a really unique chair display that they do. The way they did it, I can't explain it. It's an illusion. All you got to do is just go back and watch the video. Let's talk about the preparations. What did it take me to get to Singapore? Like what was my routine? Back in August, middle of August, I started doing a routine where I worked out with my employer that I would be working at nighttime and then be done around noon, and then just work between 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. all the way up to about 12 noon the next day. The reason I did that because I looked up what the time zone difference is between Singapore and Central Time, and I figured out that Singapore is about 14 hours ahead. That's where I figured out on my calendar that, okay, I put on my calendar where I'm going to be sleeping at this time, I'm going to go to bed at this time, I'm going to get up at 7 p.m. because if it's 7 p.m. Central Time in the United States, over in Singapore, it's 8 a.m. already. I wanted to make sure that I fit the schedule and not have a jet lag. That little thing really helped me. So if you're looking to travel somewhere internationally, whether it's Singapore or wherever you're gonna go, look up their time zone and try to figure out, okay, can I work out a deal with my employer where I can work at nighttime and sleep during the day? Now, I know not everybody can do that, but that's my best advice from my experience. I did it for 2 months, and honestly, when I was there for 2 weeks, didn't really have a difficult time dealing with the jet lag. Of course, part of my preparation was also looking up at the hotels, looking up food. I had to budget everything. I had to select the airplane. And my strategy is typically, and I also talk about that in my vlog that's right before I get to the Singapore National Gallery. You'll see me talking about that. That's where I talk about really that anybody can travel internationally. Mentally, there's no restriction. The only restriction you put is the one that's in your mind. For me, I knew that I wanted to start preparing for my international flight at least 6 months before. So for this particular trip that I took this year, I started already saving money several years ago. But I really started putting more away this year, and I started doing around January, February of this year. So that was my other preparation strategy, is to start preparing early, so that way I wouldn't have to scramble and find the money at the last minute. That's why I was able to fly premium economy, because I was saving more money early on. That would be my advice to anybody too. No matter what your budget is, whether you're making $100,000 a year or whether you're making $40,000 a year, put a percentage away, whatever it may be. Like for me, whatever I make every paycheck, I put at least 5% away every paycheck. And that helped get to my goal a lot faster. And that's why I was able to book my flight way back in April, because I had most of my money saved up at that point, so I didn't have to worry about whether I was gonna have enough or not. That was my first step. The second step was saving for the hotel. The best thing is, once you figure out what your budget is and how much a hotel costs, start looking up 6 months in advance, so you have a general idea of what it's gonna cost you, because once you figure that out, everything is easy after that. Now you know, okay, let's say it cost $1,000 for 10 days to stay at a hotel in Singapore. Okay, now you know you have $1,000 that you're gonna have to spare to go to Singapore to stay at a hotel for 10 days. Now you have to figure out mentally whether you have to get another job, whatever it may be. Figure out what you have to do to get to that goal and save that $1,000. And finally, to conclude this video, what I did is I made a list of everything that I'm gonna need, what my budget is gonna be, and approximately how much everything is gonna cost. And then from there, it became easier because I was able to then start putting money away, and I would have to adjust certain things, certain budgets that I had before, I would have to pause for a time being until I saved for this trip. And my overall suggestion, or just from my experience, the reason that I chose to pause certain budgets that I did have prior to going to Singapore, this was my dream trip that I wanted to do since 2012. And again, if you haven't seen my video that's titled, Why Did I Choose Singapore?, with over 650 views, definitely go check it out. I do explain in greater detail why I chose Singapore and why it's been my dream since 2012. But because it was my dream to go to Singapore, I really wanted to focus on it, because until then I was just making excuses. You know, I've been making excuses for 10 years nearly, saying that, oh, I want to go to Singapore. I've been telling that to people. And then I finally realized that I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to other people by not actually doing anything about it. So now that I went there, as you've seen, if you've seen any of my vlogs, you know that I had a great experience. And I now know that I want to go back to Singapore to experience more of what the country has to offer. Everything between food, hospitality, whatever you can think of, Singapore has. And hospitality is one of the best things that they have there.